So this scenario will be about describing 3 common mistakes, and then we will conclude with 1 mistake, which is not shown here. So before we dive into the scenario, let me show you what data we will be working with. So here we have a spreadsheet with 3 tabs. The first one is hosting emails for Joe Doe and Paul Smith. Then we have phone numbers for the same people, and then we have locations for the same people. And in our following examples, we will be working with this data. Obviously, as you can expect, we will get to do some get map matching. Okay, so let me switch back to the scenario now. And let's focus on the first route here. So I'm going to first disable these routes, which I'm not going to work with. By the way, this is super powerful. I strongly recommend you use this feature when you are developing your scenarios because it can save you a ton of operations. And in this scenario, what we want to achieve is that we want to first get email data about our 2 people. Then we want to aggregate those emails into an array. So we will simply create an array with ID, name, and email as the keys. And then we will get our data from the phone numbers tab, again for Paul Smith and Joe Doe. And for these rows, we will try to look up the emails from this array. So at the end of the day, we want to have a simple text string, which is just separated by new row, which will show me name of the person, phone number of the person, and this information will simply come from this module. But then we will also want to look up emails for these people. Okay. So it's time for our getMap function. And again, this is a mistake which I see happening quite often, especially with Google Sheets. So as you start typing your getMap function, you know that first you need to say from which array you will be looking up the information. Then you will likely want to identify your fields. So I said that I want to get the email. So if I'm not paying attention, I will just guess the row name. I will say I want to get email based on the ID and based on the ID which is coming from module number 5. Then I will close the map function and I will want to get the first result from the matching. I press OK, I run the scenario, and surprise, surprise, it doesn't work. The email is missing here, right? So you will immediately start to wonder why it's not working. You have correctly typed name, ID, you've mapped the ID field from module number 5, yet it's not working. Well, the thing here is that you always need to go by the raw names. So when we say we want email, you cannot rely on this user-friendly name, but you always need to check the raw name. And especially for Google Sheets and data coming from search modules, the raw name is always the index of the column within the spreadsheet. So here, it's number 2. So the email which I used here is supposed to be number 2 as the raw name and not the email. For the ID, it's supposed to be 0. And then we can keep the ID mapping as it is because that's still correct. So now when I run the scenario, everything works perfectly. Okay, so when you build your getMap functions, always, 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 I cannot repeat it enough, make sure you are using raw names and specifying the arguments of the function, all right, especially the first 2, because it's crucial. And especially for Google Sheets, your user-friendly names will never match with the raw name. For many apps, the name which you see here, the user-friendly name, for example, this email, will be the same as the raw name, but especially for Google Sheets, the raw names are always these indices. And now moving to the common mistake number 6. And one repeated pattern I frequently see is that users will use a lot of search modules behind each other. And what that means is that your bundles will just grow exponentially because the results will be just multiplying each other. And if this module produces 1000 bundles, this module 2 and this module 3, at the end of the day, the next module will be producing 2 times 3 times 1000. So it would be 6000 bundles, which is a lot of operation burned on development. So in this case, I'm just getting the emails from my spreadsheet, then I'm getting the phone numbers, and then I'm getting locations. It means that when this last module runs in my scenario, there will be already 8 bundles as the result, because 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8. Right? So it's growing super fast. And usually when you search, then you should either take probably just the first result, or maybe you should be using an aggregation module behind it, either array aggregation, text aggregator, numeric aggregator. But it's highly possible that there should be an aggregation behind your search module, unless you are specifically looking just for one value within your search module. So when I run this route now, I will indeed get the 8 results, which I mentioned. This just shows 4 operations, but every operation produced 2 bundles. So 4 times 2 is 8. And moving over to the last practical example in this video, and it is going to be about aggregations and choosing the right level of aggregation. So in this example, I have the 3 same modules which I had here. So again, I am looking for emails, then I'm looking for phone numbers, and then I'm looking for locations. And when you run your aggregations, you always need to identify the source module which you want to use as the source for your aggregation. So in my case, this level of aggregation would give me just 1 result, because I selected the module number 11 here, and all I do is I get just the names from the last module here. So when I run this scenario, or when I run this route, I will get just 1 array at the end. Even though there were multiple bundles produced here, I still got just 1 array. Okay, yes, there are duplicates, but we know why now. But if my assignment was to get just 1 array at the end, this would be the solution. What if I wanted to aggregate only to the level of the middle module here, to the level of phone numbers? How would that change the results? Well, of course, I will get multiple arrays as the output from the array aggregator. You see, now I have 2 bundles coming out of the aggregator, because this module produced 2 results, and then the 2 results ran through here and were aggregated back to 2 arrays. So first array is here, and then the second array is here. And yes, again, we have some duplicates here, but it doesn't really matter. The main message here is that once you decide to do an aggregation, it's super important to understand which module is supposed to be the source for your aggregation, so you get the correct granularity within your aggregation. And it's very easy to make mistake here, so run tests and make sure you get it right, because if you don't aggregate correctly, you may ending up burning all your monthly quota just while developing your scenario. So this is for the practical examples of common mistakes, and I've mentioned that there will be 8 mistakes, but so far I've shown just 7. So what's the 8th one? Well, one important thing which is very frequently missing in many organizations is documentation. If you are building complex scenarios which are involving multiple departments, multiple apps, there is maybe 20 different modules, you should be always documenting them for users of your organizations. So for example, if you are no longer with the organization, people will still understand what's happening in your scenario. It doesn't really matter how you document, but make sure you do document. So it can be just a Word doc. You can document in Jira. You can document in Monday, in ClickUp, whenever. Just make sure that you describe the scenarios. You describe the tricky parts of the scenario, the most complicated parts, which are already too hard, or not too hard, but which are hard to understand even for you when you come back to the scenario 2 weeks later. It's probably going to be an issue for other members of your organizations. Describe what the scenario is doing, what are the inputs, what are the outputs, what are maybe even the potential modules which can eventually fail. It's going to help you a great deal, and it's going to help your coworkers a lot. This is it. I hope I was able to identify some of the mistakes you may end up making in future, and now you should be able to prevent them from happening. And let's see you in the next video.